morning, everyone. I apologize for being 15 minutes late, but then I stepped out of my home by 6 a.m. My driver drove at 40 kilometers per hour. So I don't know who should I blame, but I should have been there on time. Usually I'm punctual, but sometimes things go wrong. So thank you for coming here today, and I thank DCOP for giving us a chance to present to you the technology which is very exclusive. Like today I'm carrying Alpha 7S3 also along, and all APS-C cameras. Not that you should buy, because it's your personal choice, whatever you want to buy. But the idea is that we want you to have the privilege of doing the hands-on on the camera before you go out there and buy. It's perfectly your choice. I was a different brand user earlier, and the best camera is what you have. The only reason I use Sony is because it has flexibilities. That is what I'm going to talk about today. What is the basic of photography? How do humans see? Because of eyes, right? Are you able to see in the middle of night? Who said yes? Who's the Batman? You cannot see in the middle of night. Why? Because without light there is no capability of eyes to see. Humans or any other form of life can only see when there is light. Without light, you can only sense it. You cannot see it. So human eyes are capable of sight because of light. So when there is light, you can see. If there is no light, you cannot see. Okay? So what is the first character and the keyword for all of you? सबसे पहली चीज क्या जरूरी है understand करना? That light is important. So what is the first thing you remember? Light. That is why professional photographers invest so much amount of money into light. We have studios, we have pro photos, we have Electro, we have Goddard. Why do we have all that stuff? Because light is important. If you really want to shoot nice, high resolution pictures, which are sharp, which are clear, what do? You do it with the light. Without light, there is no photography. So there are different genres of photography which we are heading towards to. And maybe I will show you some of my pictures, which I plan not to show you today. But in case, if I have to, I will. So the idea is, once you have light, the other thing which is very important is, after light. So once you realize there is light, before subject there is an understanding which is important. The understanding which is important is that there are, like some of us sing, some of us dance, some of us write. We all want to express ourselves, right? Why do we upload status on Instagram, on WhatsApp? Because we want to express ourselves. How many of you write? Very few. 10 years down the line, there are people who would play guitar. But the limitation of every form of art is two. One is the linguistic barrier, other is the educational barrier. For example, if I speak something here and there is a scientist in Germany, can he understand me in English? He's a scientist, but he won't be able to understand this language. In the same way, there is a Mediterranean high-notch top, like for example, Arun Pamuk. Do you know him? Arun Pamuk is one of the biggest authors. He wrote the novels like My Name is Red. He has Booker's Prize. He was also got Nobel Prize for Literature. But you don't know him because it's right? And then the idea is, if he tries to understand our lecture, he won't be. Why? Because his panache is in a different language. But that doesn't mean that he is stupid, he doesn't know stuff. He knows, but there's a linguistic barrier. In Asia Pacific, the biggest problem is, after every 24 kilometers, the language changes. After every 14 kilometers, the dialect changes. I came from Greater Noida, so people speak a different language there. Okay, huh? So from just this stretch to this, the dialect changes, the language changes. So when you are in the part of this world, which is Asia Pacific, it changes very rapidly. You can't be, becoming an influencer with language because it changes. So there is the linguistic barrier. But if I show you a picture of Taj Mahal, the person in Germany or person in Africa will understand that it's a beautiful building, right? You don't need to say anything because visuals have their own language. They have their own impact. You don't need to be speaking that language. The other barrier which we face is educational barrier. Because, for example, you are a great writer, but the worker who comes at your home, can you write a poem and ask her to read it? Even if she is educated. You know, education also has levels. Some are educated, some are graduated, some are scholarly educated. For example, Shashi Tharoor. He is scholarly educated, right? In the same way, when we talk about education, there could be like barriers. So that is the other problem. For example, if you go to the tribal areas, they know how to read, they know how to write, but which language? Their local tribal language. And if you have to do a campaign on COVID, can you tell them nice English banner? Can you give them the pamphlets about viruses? They won't understand. So what we do is we paint, we make caricatures, we make graffitis, we make cartoons. Like for example, what was the most successful campaign for Save Water? A flowing tap with a cross on it. A water dog with a cross on it. Why? Because people could relate more to visuals which have no linguistic barrier, which have no educational barrier. So that is why whenever you are trying to tell something, you are trying to tell it to the mass audience where there is no linguistic barrier, where there is no educational barrier. Understood this? The idea is because skill is powerful, knowledge is only data. In the same way, when we become photographers, you may know shutter speed, you may know aperture, you may know a lot of people, you may know photographers, you may know lights, you may know what goes in, but then it is not something which is skill. Skill is when you have the camera, you shoot stuff, you know what you are doing with it, you create stories, that is what skill is. Okay? So what is learning so far? One, light is important. Two, there are no barriers when it comes to photography, no linguistic barrier, no educational barrier, right? The third important thing is skill is important. What makes you a photographer? It's a simple question because all of you are becoming one. And you should know what makes you a photographer. Huh? Okay, there are many examples to it. I will tell you my set of characters which makes you a photographer. I find it very profound and I hope it will be parallel to what you will be experiencing in coming days. The first thing which makes you a photographer is passion. Because photography is not very easy. It's not going out and taking a click. It takes a lot of passion to be one. For being a passport studio photographer, you don't need passion, you need a shot. But for being a good photographer who experiments with art, who, puts their milestones of creativity in the world, you need to be passionate. For example, when we fall in love, what happens to us? We get passionate about other person. 2 scoops of vanilla and brownie. Right? Otherwise, 5 rupees की ice cream में हमारा काम चल जाता था, right? We paid for same thing 300 times. Right? If you go and have an ice cream, it's just for 20, 25, 30. When you go for 2 scoops of vanilla with brownie, it is 300, 600. Because we get passionate and we start behaving completely differently. And if we are passionate for a long time, what happens? We end up asking people to join our wedding and bless day and stuff. If we fluctuate, then one of them is listening to music, sad song, Arjit Singh, and other one moves on, right? And depends who is moving on. In the same way, when you become a photographer, you can buy a camera, you could start, and then one fine day, you're just shooting squirrels, metros, beggars, right? That's what happens. And for example, you buy a camera, you have spent 30,000 on a camera, you see someone on the road, you are like, and the other person is, no, I don't want you to take my picture. You are like, मैंने 30,000 खरीदेंगे, छोड़ो, मेरे 30,000 कैमरा में गए, I won't leave you. So this is what is the affair of becoming a photographer. And the maximum a budding photographer does or a photographer does is, you make a page, you write Sameer's photography, DM for photo shoot. So now what makes you a photographer? What is the first thing? Passion. Another thing is vision. And the third thing, which is very important, is equipment. That is why we are here today. Okay? Now what is this? It's a DSLR. So it's a DSLR, right? It's an XLR. Okay, the first character which is very important, I was expecting you guys to understand this and already know this, is this. What is? What is this called? ILC. ILC is interchangeable lens camera. So anytime you are in a position to change the lens of the camera, it's a good camera. Now why is it so? Because there are different genres of photography. One day you are a videographer, other day you are a still photographer, third day you are shooting wildlife, then you are shooting landscape, then you are shooting portraits, fashion. So if you are able to change the lenses, you are in a position to shoot different genres. अगर आप कैमरा की लेंसेज चेंज कर पा रहे हैं, आप अलग-अलग थीम के फोटोग्राफी कर सकते हैं. Okay? Then the idea is, every time you become a photographer, it is more of multimedia. And when we talk about multimedia, so for example, I have a camera which is Alpha 9 over there. Now, why do we need a camera which is becoming fast? For example, you are a wildlife photographer and you are there shooting with a camera. So what exactly happens is, like, when a leopard runs after its catch, what is the speed of the leopard? 120 kilometers per hour. Okay? So now imagine you are shooting, you have a camera, you took one click, you got the tail of the leopard. You took one more click, you got the tail of the deer. You took one more click, the shot was leopard up into the air, deer in the air, and that was the shot, right? And you got legs of the leopard and the tail of the leopard. Is it possible you could go to leopard by a crore? Possible? No. It's not possible. Why? Because in photography, action is everything. Now, for example, I have a camera over here. It is A9. It can shoot up to. There are two kinds of shutters. One is called as mechanical, so this is how fast it can shoot. Okay, so is it audible? The guy is in the corner. Audible? Okay. Now sometimes even 10 is not sufficient. We need more. So then we go to a different kind of shutter which is called as electronic. Is it audible now? Okay. It's shooting. And it's shooting back to back. Like, it's not buffering, it's not stopping. You can shoot as long as you want. Understood this? Now, why is that important? Because sometimes your action is so. For example, if you have to shoot something which is, not fast only, there are stages to any action. First, any cat or any wildlife, they will warm up. And then they will do the action. First, they start crawling very slowly. So you have to shoot the entire session. When these photographers say they shot with pictures, now you know how they shot with pictures. There is a lot of skill which goes in it, but equipment plays an important role. Though there is this one concept which is now very common. Earlier it was very novel when Sony launched it, but now it has become common. But I will still try to tell you about how it works. For example, if I have to take a picture, suppose of a friend over here. Can you see the projector in some hanging way? Okay. Now, for example, if I want to shoot him, whatever settings I am changing, they are evident. Whatever I am changing, if I am changing shutter speed, I can see it changing. For example, if I see a dark picture like this, if I click, the output will be dark. It will be a dark picture. Okay? And if I see a picture which is, okay, probably kind of exposed like this, when I see the picture, it is probably. And in phase, for example, if I see a picture which is overly exposed, type. So when I see the output, it will be overly exposed. This privilege was not possible 4 years down the line. Because if you were using a camera, you should know what shutter speed, what aperture, what ISO, then only you could take a picture. And now this is very important, and how accurately a camera is able to understand the light and exposure is very important. Okay? Try to now. Just ask him how he is. Now you all saw what they were doing, right? What kind of expressions were there? Did you? Now, in reality, what kind of expressions they are up to? Because we are slowing down the time. And this is one of the characters which is very important on today's cameras, to slowing it down. Okay, now there are two things which I want to tell you. Here is one, you're slowing down, and that is how cameras have become multimedia. The other two is, I just use this source of light. No? So what does it tell us? The low light capabilities of camera. Because, the idea, what did I tell you, that today it has become one-man show. Earlier, when you would shoot something, there was a grapper. There was someone who would take care of lights. There was someone who would look into the entire production. Now, huge productions are happening and one person is doing the entire show. So, we want to look onto cosmetics which are not expensive, which are easy, which could be easily, adapted. Okay? Any questions as of now? Then the same way you could create time lapses on the camera. Because there are many situations where you need to do it. As I told you, it has all become to multimedia. Then lenses also play an important role, because it's not that one lens with which you shoot. So it could be a wider one, it could be a 24-70, it could be a prime 24 G master, in the same way 35 1.8. I'm just carrying a few lenses. In total, there are 68 lenses in G and there are 12 lenses in G master. Because if you buy a camera, it's important that you also have the lenses. Like for example, we have a 400mm lens. Even DCOP has one of those. We have 400-600mm. We have 600mm. So it's important that you have these lenses. Like today, I'm carrying one which is 100-400mm along. So if you have any questions, please ask. I was shooting the world's largest family. You know that documentary which was telecasted on Nat Geo? 27 July 2013, it was telecasted for the first time. No, it's not from Nepal, it's from Bangladesh. I saw this there. So I have shot that. I was there for 7 months. And this guy, his name is Zayona. He had, when we shot him for the first time, he had 48 wives. Now he has 73. The youngest one is 18-year-old. Her name is Samyangi. The only point in my life when I was jealous. But yeah, lucky guy. But they're the most innocent people I have ever met in my life. So when I was shooting them, I needed a wide shot. Imagine we had 48 wives, 182 kids. You can't break that record. No one can. So when I was shooting them, there was one option at that point of time available on Sony camera, which was called as sweep panorama. Imagine a full-frame camera able to shoot sweep panorama. So the cover page or the cover shot of the documentary is Iona standing in front and entire family in the back. So I started from one end and did the entire thing. So it felt good. But then today, that is not the reason. Today, we have G-Master series of lenses. If you're shooting video, what is the first thing you do with the video once you're done? Once you are done with video, when you edit, what is the important thing in editing of video? Color correction, right? So the color correction of G-Master, you don't usually need it. Alright, so this is my picture, which I shot for this one.
Only 39 files.
Our youngest wife is some family. And when we were shooting him, there was this one lady, she was crying. And I asked her, why are you crying? She was like, I have to wait 3 more months to get married to Zero. Understand? So the idea is, now when I talk today about the camera one, it has internal image stabilization. For example, if I am creating a video, what do I need? I need a gimbal. If I don't want to buy a gimbal, what options do I have? It has an internal, and a good gimbal costs around 50,000, right? So that cost is saved. Then the other thing is, for example, as a journalist, I need FTP, file transfer protocol. I'm shooting from my mobile. There's a software from the camera. There's a software which is called an imaging edge. So I could send all the pictures directly from there. It becomes easier. Now, when we talk about a camera which is able to shoot 4K, which is able to do wonders, we also need a different set of cards. So this is a CFA card, right? Because once cameras are graduating, memory has also to graduate. So on these cameras, these are very faster. Even if you do the complete 80 GB shoot and you want to dump it into the laptop, how much time do you need? If you have 80 GB data, how much time would you need to transfer it into a normal laptop?
Around 2 hours.
It takes less than 2 minutes. Right? The concept of Thunderbolt is the faster one. So that is the other flexibility. Then lightweight is the other flexibility. Then multimedia option is the other flexibility. So these flexibilities make it easier. Like for example, when I had to travel earlier, I would travel with 3 cameras. Now if I could travel with this one small camera and one shoot. Like I shot the entire Nepal earthquake with a camera which is held for 6,000. Like this is put on extra same, but almost this. So I shot with that. Now, for example, in today's world, when you use smartphone, what is the biggest limitation of smartphone? Its battery dies very often. That's a limitation of smartphone. Like for example, even if you had this old bit phone, you would charge once, and after 3 days you may need to charge. Otherwise, it would stay. But on smartphones, the biggest limitation is the battery dies. Now, for example, I am shooting and my battery dies. What is my option? Either I will have to have a couple of batteries, but that is not always the best option. The other option is that you could use directly the power bank to charge it, to use it as a source of energy to shoot, which makes it better. Then the videos which you can shoot on the cameras are usually 29 minutes and some seconds. After that it cuts, but on here it doesn't. So you could shoot back to back without any cut. If there is like 7 M3, it had earlier this at that point of time. Okay. Then, for example, when you're shooting stills, you need to have, this is usually the point of style of shooting. But when you're shooting the video, you need the tiltable LCDs. They are like, because this is something which people often demand that we need LCDs which are tiltable.
so that they could shoot in situations where they need to go on a low angle or a high angle. If you have a camera and you're shooting and something happens to camera after 2 lakh, you could ask for anything. So in India, people usually don't do that, but in other countries, people are waiting कि कुछ हो जाए and we could claim the money. So there is this company sure that till 2 lakh nothing will happen. But usually nothing happens ever. Not like usually I have never seen any photographer massively saying I had issues with the shutter. Usually it does. But electronic shutter is always better. In coming days, like in year down the line, you will see that cameras will only come with electronic shutter. Now, why am I saying that? Because Sony launched a camera which is called as A1. Do you know what is the most surprising thing it is capable of doing? It has electronic shutter and you can sync flashes on electronic shutter. If that is the only limitation, that there was a mechanical shutter on the camera. Why? Because flashes were not syncing on electronic shutter. Now they made a camera and you can sync it on electronic shutter. So that also tells me that in coming days, the way people don't use DSLR now, they won't be looking more into mechanical shutter. I think they will create a door out of mechanical shutter to save the sensor from dust and stuff. The rest, it will be all electronic shutter. And electronic shutter is without any count. You don't have to worry about it. There is no wear and tear. It is more reliable. You can do more experimentation on it. You could upgrade that shutter. For example, if a camera comes with a shutter speed of FPS, for example, 1/10, later company launched a software. It can go up to 1/12 because it's electronic. So that is how electronic shutters are better. And that is what when we talk about A1 and cameras like that. But all these cameras have both electronic and mechanical shutter.